Hi, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to my talk, Reading on 3D Surfaces in Virtual Environment. I'm Chunxue. This work was my master thesis project and done at the University of Melbourne. It was supported by Difeng Yu and supervised by Tilman Dingler. The main idea of this whole project is exploring 3D surfaces as the canvas to render the text in virtual reality. So, what motivates us to do that? As we all know, reading has always been a traditional way for people to get information as the entertainment. With the new technologies coming, the ways of reading are changing as well. Now we could use the phones, the tablet, even PC to read instead of just reading the paper book. And moreover, the reading interfaces are traditionally two-dimensional, while the text in our surroundings, which rendered on objects, are non-planar. People just put on their eyes on the immersive game interactive experience for virtual reality, but less on the text displays nowadays. But some researchers, such as the Grout team, who did research about reading surfaces in virtual reality, found that it could improve the experience in that. So, with the help of 3D technologies we think about, we can stretch the confines of those two dimensions. So, this makes us explore using different 3D shapes as a canvas for text rendering. In this case, we conducted two user studies to investigate the properties of 3D shapes and their effects on reading. As for the study 1, we focused on more general shapes different, while the second study, we investigated the specific shape or parameters. And there is a video shows the text rendered on the concave and the sphere in the studies. And you can see that text was scrolling from the bottom to top. In the second study, it also includes an application scenario, which participants could experience with the text which rendered on the different common 3D objects. And I will introduce this one later. So, at first, we investigated four basic shapes: the named the plane, the concave sphere, and cylinder. In order to make the curved surface comparable, we set the same degree of warp for each surface and keeps other parameters as the same. There is a short video shows how the participants managed the test during the study. We recruited 16 participants in total for study 1, and this is how the schooling works. And they could also control the reading speed by themselves as well. The participants were asked to read a short article for each surface, and after that they need to answer several questions. In this case, we measured the comprehension and the reading comfort, ease of reading, and some other subjective experience, etc. Here is what we found. We have subjective as well as the objective results, and we applied the Feldman test for the subjective measures. And there are three measures show the statistically significant results. To be more specific, as for the reading comfort, as you can see that here, the horizontal cylinder showed better than the sphere. As for the ease of reading, the plane had better performance than the sphere. As for the distraction, the sphere is much more distractive than the baseline, which is a plane. As for the objective measures, they didn't yield a statistically significant difference between the surfaces. To the further detail, I refer you to our paper. In this case, from our study 1, as we focus on those general shapes as I mentioned before, we found that reading on our baseline provides less distraction and it performs better in ease of reading. And reading on horizontal cylinder shows better performance than a sphere for the comfort level. In another word, we could collect a point that the reading experience on the surface which worked on one axis is better than two axes. Since the main idea of the project is investigating shapes as rendering canvas for testing in virtual reality. So based on those results, we want to go to more depths in for the experiments. So like what parameters on those shapes would affect reading. And in this case, we conducted our second study. And in our second study, it's still within subject design, but with three independent variables. At first, the three shapes. As I mentioned before, from the study 1, we found that the warp on one axis is better than two axes. So we focus those three different shapes, the sphere, horizontal sounder, and vertical sounder. And secondly, the angles. Because in study 1, the plan shows a better performance in some subjective measures. And we want to explore whether the warp angle would affect the reading experience as well. So in this case, we want to we decide the angles as variables as well. Then the width of the wheel box. In another word, you can think as a horizontal field of view. As the field of view is a very important factor in the virtual reality, so we want to know that whether this would be an important factor that affects reading behavior as well. And the customizations for each shape, which for the participant could select their preference of the warped angle and width of the wheel box. And as for their preference, this will be recorded to our database and we could analyze it later. So what do we measure in this study? Basically, we followed the pretty much same protocol as the previous study with the objective measures and the subjective measures. But we had an application explored as a part of the study. Here's a video about that. You can see that the participant could go into that and pick up the bottles, and the test was rendered on different 3D objects. They can screw the test in the application, and they can also compare the curved version with the plain version. And there are lots of different objects they could interact with, like different size of the bottle, the cans, advertised pillar, etc. And this application demonstrates how the test rendering can be applied to the common warped 3D objects. So in this case, we collected lots of qualitative and quantitative data. There are some findings. So as for the subjective measures, the comfort level shows a statistically significant difference. As for each variable, to be more specific, as for the width of the wheel box, the shorter one, which the field of view is 22.6, shows more comfortable rather than the longer one. And for the warped angle, the most warped performs worst, while the other two show the similar performance compared with the most warped one. But there is no significant difference in the interaction effect and other measures. As for the preference, as you can see here, as for the wheel box space, the data shows that the most centralized in this area, and which can convert into 24 or 25 to 28 degrees in the field of view, the horizontal field of view. As for the warped angle, in our study, the participants prefer the smaller angle, especially for the sphere. And to the further details, I will refer you to our papers. And meanwhile, as for the subjective measures, here is a table shows the correlation between subjective and objective measures. We conduct the Pearson correlations between these. You can see that the darker, the stronger relationship. The comfort level has a positive correlation with other subjective feelings such as reading speed and others like concentration, However, it is interesting that the objective measures don't correlate well with the subjective measures. So, from the above results of our second study, we could find that the warped angle and the width of the wheel box are the factors that affect people's reading comfort level in virtual environment. And also, the higher reading comfort level would encourage readers to think about their reading quality has been improved. Actually, even the accuracy and reading speed didn't change so much, but they changed their feelings about reading. So throughout the whole project, we could get some ideas like reading on two axes says warped object provide this less ease of reading, especially compared with a plan. And it is also easier to read on the single warped axis compared with the two warped axes. And also reading on the flatter display is considered more comfortable. And moreover, according to our participants' preference, the horizontal field of view of the wheel box is recommended to be between 25.4 degree to 28.1 degree when reading the text on the curved surface in virtual reality. And some measures like comfort level just positively correlated with the user's subjective impressions, but not shown to be correlated with the actual reading performance, or you could say the actual you could say that correlated with the feelings of the readers, not the actual performance. And also from the feedback of the application exploration, there shows a trade-off between the ease of reading and an immersive reading experience when rendering text on the curved objects like the bottle. So how could you balance these two and still need to take time to think about? So from the main findings that I mentioned just now, there are some limitations to our project and a couple of assumptions that we are making. The first limitation is that as the vertical field of view of the head-mounted display was limited, we decided to vary the horizontal field of view only. Instead of instead of using a wireless head-mounted display, we implemented our study with Oculus Rift CV1, and that really restricted the movement of the users in exploring the virtual reality environment, especially for the second study. And when the users take to tour of the application, they have to teleport to somewhere instead of just free to walk around. And the second is that the third is that the protocol that we applied in our study to test the legibility, such as the read aloud, sometimes mean loud accurate for the reading speed, etc. And moreover, although we point out that there are the trade-offs between the immersive and ease of reading in the virtual reality reading experience, we didn't analyze how to balance them. So there's still left the space for the future study. And yes, and all of these are today's presentation. And thank you all for the listening. And it really my pleasure to be here today. And thank you for watching.